Well, good evening, Cyprian. I just wanted to thank you for coming out today and allowing me to interview you. I just wanted to hear from you some of your thoughts on church and salvation. Now, I know that these are both key parts of the Christian faith, and you have some really great views on them, so we just wanted to hear from you.
Well, thank you for interviewing me, and as I think so myself, I do have some great views on those. But thank you, of course, like I said, but the church today is a great striving opportunity, a place for Christians to really grow, and I hope that as we both live, it continues to be a striving place. So,
Both live, yes, and someday we will all die. But before that day comes, why don't you get around to this interview, and can we hear some of your thoughts on the church and salvation?
well, you're the one asking the question, so whenever you're ready to quit the small talk, feel free to ask.
Okay. Well then, my first question to you is, what are the views of the church, and what are you guys interested in doing through the church here in Carthage? Would you say that the church is doing a good job of achieving that, or is there something that could be done better? I also know that some other people in high positions are speaking other things, so what do you have to say to them?
Well, here in Carthage, generally speaking, we really define ourselves in the church as unified, and we want to preserve the order of the church that we have at this moment and what we stand for. So what I say to other churches and churches in the area is we do a great job of achieving the unity, but there's also many times to grow. There are new people that come into the church. There's people that leave. There's unity building every single day. So if we're not stepping out and talking to those people about their walk or the faith or church, we're not building that unity. And I know that other people say things, but what really matters is your church and what you truly believe, because if it's not unified and you're not teaching on the salvation of Christ and everything, what are we teaching on? Is it heresy, or what do we have in Christ?
That is a very good point. My next question for you would be, many Christians are divided on several issues, and most of these are along the lines of salvation and who is accepted back into the church. Some want to accept people back into the church that denied Christ under torture, while others still want to reject him. While some of who are suffering for their faith in Christ believe they should be able to make their decision once the pressure is off. What are your thoughts on this?
Well, these are some very hard questions that you ask, because this is a part where there is some separation between the church. But what I really urge these people is to understand what they're going through, because there may be things that are different than others. Their torture definition may be different than what other Christians are going through. So they really have to understand where their heart is at first. And then I'd say, being a bishop myself, and for us, really only bishops can forgive sins. That's what we believe, because we have the power from God that he has held us in this high position for that long that we can forgive sins and everything. So we try to delegate the authority to forgive sins. It's not really that ordinary people can forgive themselves of sins or forgive others. So we bishops like to be the ones that forgive sins, because we feel that that is our true calling, to forgive and preach the word. So.
Now, there seems to be many new Christians popping up all over the place. How are we supposed to know who the true Christians really are?
Well, as has been stated in the past from others, theologians and church leaders, a true Christian is one who's baptized in a believer of Jesus Christ and worships under that authority. And he needs the guidance of a bishop and the church to really grow in his faith. So a true bishop is only one who's ordained in the teachings that have been believed since the apostles. And if that is not what you're learning from, then are we really a true bishop, or are you really a Christian? So, I mean, a bishop's the only one who can speak for the Christians under the authority of God, but they have their own answering to God that needs to be done.
Now, are these people not even Christians, or what would you consider them to be then?
Well, my motto, as I have stated before, is whoever does not have the church as a mother cannot have the church have God as the father, because you need to have your church, your fellow believers, to grow in your faith. So another one is, outside the church there's no salvation. Your salvation is something that you have to hold dearly to. The church is where you grow, as has been stated. And I mean, if you're not in the church, are you really professing your faith? So, and our church nowadays refers to the original Catholic and Orthodox Church, and all of those truths that back in those days speak of the unity of the church and integrity of the religion. So we have to have unity in our faith and unity in what we believe to be Christians. I mean, there may be people that profess it or are believing in that one aspect, but they might not believe in the Trinity. Well, the Trinity is a key important factor in everything that's done. So,
You know, I predict that one day there will be a Christian emperor. What are your thoughts on that? Do you think that will ever happen?
a Christian emperor, what high horse are you on? But I think that's ridiculous and will never happen. How can a Roman emperor be a Christian? Christians aren't allowed to carry swords in battle. So how could they be a Christian? So I just really think that is gosh darn impossible.
Okay. Now, what would you say is more important in the church? Would you say unity in the church or understanding salvation?
Those both are important. You can't split those up. Unity is what builds the church. Salvation is people that come into church and build on the unity. Unity is a key factor in this church, but as is salvation. You need to have salvation to be a believer and join the unity of believers that have the true salvation, have been baptized in Jesus Christ's name. And I mean, he was baptized by John, and he grew in unity with the 12 disciples and everybody else that heard of him, learned from him, and heard his word. He died and rose and built more unity, and one day he'll come again to unify his church of believers.
Great. Well, you know, those are all the questions that I had for this segment, so I just want to thank you for coming on the show, and see you around.
Thank you for interviewing me. It was a great